then the coalition that was in power, that was not independentist, decided to move to call anticipated elections and to change its strategy from like only asking for a fiscal agreement with Spain to not independence, but the right to decide, what was called at the time the right to decide. They were not even using the terminology self-determination right. So they were saying that in this legislature they will organize a consultation, not a referendum, a consultation, because they wanted to do everything legally. So it was a consultation is something that the Spanish Constitution permits, and it's a kind of non-binding referendum. So they tried to agree with this referendum, this non-binding consultation with Spain by going to the Spanish Parliament and voting for it. And no one, except from the extreme left in Spain, backed them. Not the Socialists, not the Partido Popular. But in the Catalan Parliament, the majority for sovereignty, at the time it was not independent, it was only sovereignty, was strong. 87 seats for sovereignty parties, 48 seats the anti-sovereignty parties. So they decided to go ahead and organize this consultation on the 9th of November 2014. This consultation was suspended by the Constitutional Court and was transformed in a participative process. They said it's not even a consultation, it's just a participatory process. Okay? Out of 6 million, more than 6 million that had the right to vote, because the foreigners had the right to vote in this consultation, because they wanted to do it different from what would be a proper election, more than 2 million voted, and about 2 million voted yes, 1.9 million voted yes. But the day after, nothing happened. The police didn't go to the polls, nothing happened. The process was organized peacefully and quickly. But then the day after, the prosecutor of the Spanish kingdom accused them. So and finally, after a trial that was held in Barcelona for most of them, and for one of the regional ministers it was held in Madrid, the Catalan president and 3 of his former ministers were judged and banned from office for disobedience for 1 to 2 years. And now, after the trial has finished, and even if in the trial they said there was no misuse of funds, then they opened an administrative procedure in the Tribunal de Cuentas, the account controller auditing of the government in Madrid, and they are prosecuted administratively for the expenditures on the 9th of November, and they are fined with more than 5 million euros. Out of these 5 million euros, 3 million have been paid by a solidarity account that the Catalan National Assembly, together with Òmnium Cultural, manages and raises through crowdfundings money from the people, and the other 2 million, these 4 people, the 3 ministers and the Catalan former president, have their houses under embargo now. Then, after all this process, 2012-2015, there were changes in the political agenda, in the political arena, and the Convergència i Unió, that was a coalition that was not for independence but yes for sovereignty, split, and Unió disappeared as a party, one of the 2 parties, and the other became independentist, pro-independence, and changed also its name to PDeCAT. And then in the elections to the Catalan Parliament in 2015, the manifestos, the agenda, the political agenda, the electoral programs were independence. They were not talking anymore about only sovereignty or a consultation, but independence. And Esquerra Republicana and PDeCAT formed a coalition that was called Junts pel Sí, Together for Yes. And then there was the extreme radical left party called La CUP that was run also in these elections. Out of the turnout was 75%, which was already very high for our standards. The pro-independence parties got 72 seats, which is the absolute majority of the parliament in seats. in seats, the majority in the Catalan parliament is in 68. 68 seats is the absolute majority. In terms of the popular vote, 47.8%. And the anti-independence parties got 39% of the popular vote and 52 seats. And then there was a group that was pro-referendum but ambiguous on independence, which is a coalition that has changed its name, and there are several parties in the left in Catalonia that got 8.94% and 11 seats, and others that didn't reach the 3% threshold and were not in parliament amount to this 4% that is missing here in the summation. But here you can have, for instance, Unió, or you can have that was pro-referendum but against independence. You can also have a party like PACMA, which is anti-toros and the protection of animals, and it's a single issue party, okay? A new Catalan president was elected, Carles Puigdemont from Junts pel Sí, PDeCAT. They approved a sovereignty declaration on the 9th of November, and on September 10, 2016, they decided to organize a referendum. And they started asking again for a period of several months. They asked again the Spanish government to allow this referendum and to agree this referendum, as the Scottish had done in the past with the British. But the answer of President Rajoy was always the same, that he does not discuss sovereignty, because sovereignty is something you don't discuss. But the same when he loses sovereignty in favor of the EU, then he voted it in the parliament in August, in the Spanish parliament in August, with no debate, in a very short debate and with no referendum. But apparently this is not an issue on sovereignty. Well, they said, no referendum. I cannot discuss a referendum because I cannot discuss sovereignty of Spain, and Spanish unity is a sacred thing that I cannot discuss. So, in the meantime, whenever things were approved in the parliament leading to the referendum, the Catalan parliament speaker and vice speakers were immediately prosecuted for allowing these debates. So their process started very early. It was the first judiciary procedure that started was against the speaker and vice speakers of the parliament for allowing the debate on the referendum to take place. Finally, in July, they established the date of the referendum for the 1st of October, and on the 6th and 7th September, they passed the law of the referendum of self-determination and a law of transition to independence. This law of transition should be activated only if the yes would win in the referendum. There was a lot of discussion on these 2 days, because they used, in order to avoid being stopped from approving the laws by the judiciary, they did it in a very short procedure, very similar to the one that the Spanish Parliament used to approve a change in the constitution to allow for the primacy of the deficit zero in the budget, as the EU has asked them. So it's not something that does not exist. It exists, and it has been used in other Spanish parliaments, but that was highly criticized by unionists in Catalonia because of the limited possibilities of debating in these 2 days that the debate was passed. Well, then we start with the events of fall that you are probably more familiar with. On the 20th of September, the offensive of the Spanish government to stop the referendum by force starts. It starts with the arrests of political officers and the registry, sorry, there's a mistake in the sentence here, and the registry in the Catalan government premises, headquarters. And the civil war goes to the Ministry of Economy of Catalonia to try to find proofs of the referendum organization, and arrest some political officers, high officers, for 3 days. They also start closing websites. The website of our association, for instance, was closed, of the Catalan National Assembly. All websites in Catalonia related to the referendum in any matter were closed without warrant. We have a trial. We asked for, in our association did not make that denunciation because our website was closed without a warrant. It's under appeal yet still because the judge dismissed it and now it's under appeal. Censoring of publications and the searching for in all over Catalonia of warehouses and presses because they wanted to find the ballot boxes to prevent the referendum from taking place, and they wanted to find the ballot boxes and the ballot papers. And they found something. They found some ballot papers, but not the ballot boxes. And also 8,000 police officers and civil ward were deployed in Catalonia for these whole months. And you remember probably they were put in, some of them were in hotels, others were in two big ships in the Catalan port. But despite all these attacks, all this offensive, the referendum was held. Thanks to a strong collaboration, self-organization of the people, the referendum was held. The turnout was 43%, and the yes was 90%. That means more than 2 million people that voted yes to independence, which represents, in terms of the electoral census, total census, a 38%, which is more than the support in terms of the census of the Brexit. The Brexit has a support with respect to the electoral census of 37%. And so I know that there has been a lot of criticism on the participation and the turnout on the referendum, but I would say that UK will exit the EU with less popular vote for the Brexit than the popular vote for the independence exists in Catalonia, or at least was proved in this referendum, and this is not taking into account the ballot boxes that were confiscated, because the Spanish police and civil wards managed to close 92 polling stations by the use of the force of the police. And also the Catalan police closed another 100 polling stations, but by not using, without the same use of the force. And so there were about 1,000 people injured in the referendum that had to go, or that there's a report in a hospital that they had a bruise or had many of them small injuries, and some of them strong injuries, such as a young guy that lost his eye in a polling station in Barcelona. And then started the whole post-referendum October month. In fact, the law of referendum established that in 48 hours after the publication of the results, independence should be declared. They postponed a little bit the official publication of the results, and finally they took 5 or 6 days to publish them. And finally they called the parliament on the 10th of October, and everybody was expecting the declaration of independence to take place on the 10th of October, but the Catalan president Puigdemont suspended the declaration. He said he suspended the declaration to ask for a mediation, for an international mediation, for a dialogue with the Spanish government. He had received a call, and there was a tweet by Donald Tusk asking him not to do anything that was definitive. I think he used this word, and asking him to not to do the independence declaration, and not insinuating that maybe a dialogue could take place if nothing too strong was done in the Catalan parliament that day. Okay, so he stopped it, but the international mediation did never appear. The EU never said anything about about interfering or intervening in an open dialogue between the Spanish government and the Catalan government. And of course, the Spanish government kept on, in fact, with an offensive that had already started. They changed the law by a decree facilitating the moving of the headquarters of the companies, for instance, on the 5th of October. Normally, to change the headquarters of a company, you need the administration council to meet, all the shareholders to meet and decide that. They changed it, and they said only the executive committee, the board, the CEOs can decide that, and there's no need for a vote of the shareholders of the company to move the headquarters. So they started a strong pressure to move headquarters. There was also an intense campaign of commercial boycott in Spain against the products in the supermarkets that were of Catalan origin. So some companies changed the headquarters just to get rid of the boycott lists. But then they started saying, okay, 3,000 companies are moving out of Catalonia. Not a single one of these companies has moved a worker, but they have moved the legal headquarters. Yes, they have done it. Well, there was also a strong mobilization that hadn't happened before of the unionist camp. The unionist parties in Catalonia, they didn't accept the referendum, so they didn't participate in the campaign, and they told people not to vote. But then they started organizing also strong and large demonstrations all together. Some of these demonstrations, and then also started something that I don't mention in the PowerPoint, but that started around this time, is like violent incidents organized by the extreme right factions that normally participate in the unionist demonstrations, although they are not the organizers of them. But they participate, they are there, and in some of these demonstrations, in the end of the demonstrations, there are violent incidents, and these type of incidents have been increasing in the last months in Catalonia, in terms of aggressions, and for instance, the burning of an Ateneu, of a social premise in Barcelona, in Sarrià, a couple of months ago. And then, so also like the risk or like the image of a social fracture of the Catalan society appeared in this October month. And well, all this led to, well, in the meantime, on the 16th of October, the president of the Catalan National Assembly, Jordi Sánchez, and the president of Òmnium Cultural, another association, were jailed without bail, accused of sedition. Accused of sedition, at the beginning it was because of the events of the 20th September. What are the events of the 20th September? A demonstration on the premises of on the headquarters of the Catalan Ministry of Economy, where the civil ward was doing the registry. I don't know if it's registry in English, registrar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's registry. Okay, they were doing the registry, and then people gathered spontaneously without being called by the Catalan National Assembly or Òmnium Cultural since 8 a.m. when they heard in the radio that the civil war was inside the Catalan government. People gathered automatically. And then the Catalan National Assembly said, okay, we have to organize that a little bit, because, and then at 12 they communicated a formal demonstration to the authorities, and some concerts and things were organized, and everything was very, very peaceful. And then at the end of the night, the civil ward had finished its registry and wanted to get out. And what Jordi Cuixart and Jordi Sánchez did was to talk to the people that were still there, asking them to go home. Please go home. And some people didn't want to go home, but they were asking them, please go home, go home, go home. Well, they were jailed, accused of sedition for preventing the work of the civil ward in this registry of the Catalan government. And then finally, after a lot of pressures, internal pressures, divisions in the independentist camp, because there were people in the independentist parties that didn't want to do the declaration of independence, others wanted. So there was a division, internal division, and a lot of strong external pressure, and also the threat that the Spanish government said that they will activate Article 155, which is the application of direct rule. Well, under these circumstances, finally, on the 27th of October, independence was declared in the parliament, was voted in the parliament, but not activated. So, not implemented, nothing happened after this formal declaration in the Catalan parliament. After 2 days of very little information, with civil society like waiting for instructions, kind of, you know. We have to defend this republic that is getting born or not. On Monday and Tuesday, we knew that President Puigdemont and 4 ministers were in Brussels and decided to resign in Brussels, and other ministers went to, because the public prosecutor on Monday issued issued the accusation for all the ministers and the president of Catalonia, and the charges at the time it was sedition, then they changed to a rebellion. And they were summoned to declare in Madrid on the Thursday, 2nd of November. On the 2nd of November, so some of them were already in Brussels, and others decided to go to Madrid, and they were kept. They went to Madrid to declare, and they were kept and jailed without bail, preventive jail without bail. What is the current situation? The Spanish government decided to activate Article 155, but at the same time calling for elections. So not to have the direct rule with no deadline, but activating the elections, calling the elections in Catalonia. So the elections to the Catalan parliament, the Catalan parliament, didn't really change the results. There's a little, a small change that I will mention. The turnout was strong, record Guinness, record turnout in Catalonia, 80%. It's different from the UK. You don't have to register to vote. Everybody is registered automatically by the authorities. So like, it's normal to have low turnout because it's not you that decides to register for an election. The turnout was 80%. The independentists had more or less the same turnout in terms of percentage, 47.5% of the popular vote and 70 seats. Before it was 72 seats. The leaders were campaigning from Brussels, and some others weren't able to campaign because they were in jail, but they were still allowed to participate in the election as candidates to MPs or candidates to the presidency of the Catalan government, because in principle their political rights are intact because they haven't been condemned yet. They are innocent until proven guilty. And the anti-independence parties increased their turnout to 43.3% and 57 seats, and the ones that diminished substantially were the pro-referendum but ambiguous on independence that got 7.4% and 8 seats. They had 11 seats before, and they had 11% of the popular vote before. Others that didn't reach the 3% threshold, it's 1.8%, so that was reduced. So the change is like there was this increase. It's more the society is becoming obviously more polarized. So among the unionists got more support than they had before. They had 39%, and in these elections they had 43.3% of the popular vote. And the independentists are more or less 47.5 in this election, 47.8 47.7 in the former election. The Catalan government finally formed after months of discussions in June 2nd. In the meantime, the Spanish government, the judiciary, and the Constitutional Court have blocked the election of candidates to the presidency. First of all, the leader of the party, Junts per Catalunya, that was the winner among the independentists on the independentist bloc and former president of Catalonia, Carles Puigdemont. He was prevented by the Constitutional Court by issuing some measures. Jordi Sánchez, who is the former president of the Catalan National Assembly but is now an elected MP in Junts per Catalunya, was also prevented, in this case by Judge Llarena, that didn't authorize him to go to the parliament for his election. And this a procedure has been opened in the United Nations on his case, because it's a violation of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 19, I think, on his right to be elected. Jordi Turull, Jordi Sánchez again, Carles Puigdemont again. Each time a different type of legal thing was issued, and also, I have to mention that, also there was a decision of the political independentist parties, not La CUP, the radical left, but the ones that are forming the government. There was a decision, or they decided, not to disobey, to elect President Puigdemont in the Catalan parliament formally, not to risk another trial for disobedience or whatever the judges and the public prosecutor in Spain might think that this is a crime to elect the one that you voted on the elections of the 21st of December. But it is true that they decided not to go ahead and not to disobey. And then also the second step was, once we elected a new president, sorry, because I didn't write his name, sorry, because I did the presentation very in a rush last night. The President Quim Torra was elected, and for a few weeks we had the president, but without the government, because he had, and in the electoral campaign, the independentist parties had said that they will restitute all these destituted people that were in government, including all the ministers. Some of them don't want, they are not anymore in politics, others are in jail but also don't want to be ministers. But some of them wanted, 4 of them, 2 that are in exile, Toni Comín and Lluís Puig, they are in exile in Brussels, and Josep Rull and Jordi Turull, which are in preventive jail in Madrid, wanted to be restored as ministers. And this is the second thing that happened, is that also the Spanish government, what he did is not to publish, he did something that is completely illegal, totally illegal. Catalan president, the new Catalan president Quim Torra was elected, and he signed the naming, he nominated his ministers, and this nomination has to be published in the official bulletin of the Catalan government. But the Catalan government was still under direct rule, and the Spanish government decided not to publish this nomination, which is an automatic thing. You cannot decide not to publish. You have to publish everything that is approved by a parliament, by a government. You are obliged to publish. They decided not to publish it because they think that these 4 people cannot be elected as ministers. Under which legal basis? Lawyers in Catalonia said there's no legal basis because they are innocent. In the case of the president, the argument was that the law, the regulations imply that the president for the election has to be physically in the parliament for the vote, but for the ministers, you are not voted, you are named, you are designated, so you don't have to be physically. Well, and again, the president, the new president, Quim Torra, decided finally not to pursue in this essay of naming them or designating them, and designated 4 other ministers So now a Catalan government, and that happened 1 week ago. So now we have a new government in Catalonia, fully fledged government with all the ministers that will start running what is left of the autonomy. So at the same time, political repression keeps on going, continues. We have 9 leaders in jail and 7 in exile. Here are their pictures. You might be familiar with Clara Ponsati, who is in Scotland in exile, and we'll have the trial for extradition for the EU order at the end of July. Carme Forcadell, the former Speaker of the Catalan Parliament that was here 1 year ago. President Puigdemont, the General Secretary of Esquerra Republicana, she is in Switzerland. She would be jailed otherwise because they were, well, some of them were in jail for 2 months and then released, and then they are back in jail for the last 2 months. And others were in jail and now are out and are not in the picture anymore. Yeah. In fact, well, no. But political repression does not affect only the political leaders of the former government. It affects many people in Catalonia. For instance, 700 mayors are accused for the 1st of October, and the threat they are facing is to be banned from office. 700 mayors out of 944 mayors in Catalonia. And municipal elections are next year. So they might use this banning of office of the mayors to, you know, that in local, especially in small towns, the personality of the mayor is important in the election. So this is something that is on the table, another threat that is on the table in Catalonia. Several teachers have been accused of hate speech for talking about the violence of the referendum of the 1st of October to their students the day after, because the students had seen the polling stations in Catalonia are the schools. So well, they talked about what happened because it was maybe the window of their school that was in the TV being destroyed violently by the police, and well, but now they are facing trials for hate speech. Dozens of detentions of activists for participating in protests, such as the general strike of the 3rd of October or the 8th of November, or in the protest for the imprisonment of political leaders that happened at the end of March, when Puigdemont was jailed in Germany for 2 weeks, the day of his detention in Germany. There were protests in that weekend in Catalonia. One of these, a young person, a young lady, Tamara Carrasco, 19 years, they applied the anti-terrorist law to her for the protests of one of these days, for blocking a motorway or something like that. And she's still under this threat. The judge has retried the accusation of terrorism, but the public prosecutor, the prosecutor of the Spanish state, keeps it. So she's not still cleared of that accusation of terrorism. She was applied the anti-terrorist law, so 20 civil wars entered in at her place, took her to Madrid without lawyer and any call, anything. And she was 2 nights in jail and then presented in the judge. Now she's released, she's back at her place, but she cannot get out of his town. Viladecans, she cannot get out of her town. Only to go to work in Barcelona. Okay, yeah. Jailing of artists and rappers, maybe you are familiar with Valtoni, Pablo Hasél. Reaction of the society. What is the reaction of the Catalan society? Several demonstrations for the freedom of political prisoners have been organized in the last months. The last one on April 15 with the unions that are not independentists. So in the anti-repression, we have a majority that is stronger than the pro-independence majority. Huge wave of solidarity in Catalonia, what we call yellow dinners, and other activities organized by mainly by the Catalan National Assembly branches in the towns. It's dinners to collect money for the families of the prisoners that had formed their own association, the ACDC, which is the Association for Drets Civils, Associació Catalana pels Drets Civils. Then campaigning of the pro-independent civil society actors, ourselves, other actors called the CDRs, internally and internationally. We think that it's important, the campaigning internationally nowadays. And the way ahead, extraditions, what's going to happen with the extraditions, the trial in the Supreme Court in autumn. This is very important. I think that they are accused, the instruction will finish in July. They are going to be accused of rebellion, so and misuse of funds. So they might, when the trial starts in autumn, they start with this accusation of a crime that implies more than 30 years of jail. And I think that international solidarity when the trial starts would be very important. I think that for the public opinions in Europe have to be conscious that in Europe, in the European Union, political leaders for organizing a referendum, a self-determination referendum, are threatened with more than 30 years of jail. And then we'll see what's happening with the Catalan government, with the Council of the Republic in Exile, this organization that puts them on wants to organize. What happens with the new government in Spain? I'm very skeptical, and after seeing what type of ministers he has named, we are very, very skeptical of any change. Grande Marlaska, who is a former judge, very well known by his handling of tortures in the Basque Country, is the new Home Minister. Josep Borrell, which is a Catalan Jacobin, that said a few months ago that the Catalan society should be disinfected, is the new Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain. So I don't see, and also the socialists backed everything, like backed the direct rule, backed the political repression, backed the repression of the referendum. So I don't see a real possibility of political change. But the independentist parties voted for the censure motion because, of course, supporting the main responsible of all what had happened wouldn't have been understood. And then there will be municipal, European, and maybe Spanish elections in spring 2012. And I leave it here and open the floor to questions, discussion, or any comments you want to
Can I
raise.
just ask, how long have we got for this?
2 minutes.
I'll check, please. Yeah, okay.
10 minutes.
So we have
Sorry.
some time. Thank you very much indeed for that very comprehensive overview. Some of us, of course, were in Catalonia for the referendum, for example, and with some of that going on. And the impression given that somehow that people were being encouraged to vote and being pushed to vote, I think it would be very difficult to stop people voting. They were so incredibly enthusiastic about the whole thing. But anyway, can we have some questions or some comments? Anybody?
May I just ask, would it be possible to have a copy of your extra
I can,
presentation?
yeah.
Because there's so much facts there, I couldn't scribble
Yeah.
them down.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course,
We'll give you a copy of it.
And perhaps if I may
Yeah,
also
right.
say, I don't know if anybody else saw a BBC programme at the weekend, last weekend. It was on the news channel at 9:30 in the evening, and it was called One World. It's part of the One World series, and it was about Catalonia, and I think it was a very fair and balanced programme. It obviously dealt with both sides of the argument. People might not agree with me, but
No, I didn't see it. I was just
it
saying, I'm pleased to hear that.
Yes,
You see, I've not been very.
Yes, but I was very, but I think, as I understand it, there have also been demonstrations for the people who wish to remain as part of Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, against independence, as it were. but so I don't know how many demonstrations, but somebody quoted to me quite a large number of people who demonstrated on the other side.
Yeah, the unionist demonstrations were concentrated in October after the referendum and before the Declaration of Independence. There were 3 of them. The first one was on the 8th of October, the second one was on the 12th of October, and the third one, do you remember the day?
I thought there was one more recently.
More recently,
Like March.
no, large demonstration, no. Not to my knowledge, maybe you are Catalan, no. I think they were concentrated in October, no? And they gather quite a large number of people, but not the same number of people that gathers normally in the independence demonstrations on the 11th of September. Right? It was another.
I managed to
but
say
yeah, they were.
I managed to say there's some more people in, so can we just
very quickly, one of the things that really shocked me when I was there as an international observer of the referendum, apart from the violence, was the very obvious infiltration of Catalonia society by Spanish secret police. On a couple of occasions, myself and a colleague were drawn to our attention in small towns that there were young men who were strangers to the town who infiltrated the crowd and were causing trouble in the agile term. Is that an ongoing problem?
Yeah, it is. Well, we all know because we've seen what they have, no, in the trial, and there's a huge number of secret police now in Catalonia, and we all know that our telephone might be spied. Yeah, that's something that all the pro-independence movement is getting conscious of, like we know that when we have meetings, we have to leave the mobile phones outside the meeting, things like that. It's getting normal.
We have another question. I suppose my name is Paul Maskey. I'm one of the 5 Sinn Féin MPs here today, so we're also looking for independence as well as a number of other colleagues around the table from different parties. But I suppose what I just want to do is send our solidarity, because one of your key messages was solidarity, international solidarity. And I know that we have spent been in Independence Day in Barcelona and Catalonia as well, and it's amazing scenes, but to witness that, and millions of people come out on the street is absolutely first class. So I would just love to be able to replicate some of that in Ireland. But I suppose from our message is solidarity with yourselves. I know during the referendum, we had party colleagues such as Martina Anderson and others, and what we witnessed all on our TV screens and reading through the word media was absolutely shocking. And people in Ireland stood shoulder to shoulder with them and continue to do that. And I suppose you'd ask the question about getting the PowerPoint presentation centres. If we were to have that, then we at least then it's really a small part, but at least then we can start to put that out in our own social media and get it through our own activist space throughout Ireland. So I know that we're trying perfect here, but just solidarity with yourself.
There's something that I would like to mention now that we say that about the solidarity, is that we are not asking for solidarity with Catalan independence, but we ask for solidarity against the violation of fundamental rights that is happening. And also we think that a mature society like Britain, we could ask to a mature society as the British one, solidarity with the self-determination right, which is in the Covenant of Civil and Political Rights of the United Nations, and that has been applied in UK for any sovereignty issue. Like we've had referendums in Scotland whenever there was a majority, but I would like to mention that the majority of the SNP in the Scottish Parliament, when they did organize the referendum and agreed with the referendum, was less strong than you had 43% of the popular vote at the time.
That's a good point.
You had 43% of the popular vote, and you had the absolute majority of the seats. Yes,
an absolute
but
majority, and we had the Greens.
we had 48% of the popular vote.
That's a good point.
And also, not only the Scottish referendum, but the referendum on Gibraltar, Falklands Islands referendum, the Brexit referendum, which is a sovereignty issue that was solved through referendum, more or less. The referendum on other islands agreements. No?
Just to say that when the trial starts, there might be the opportunity in cities throughout Europe from towns to show solidarity locally. There's something that you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, we had a meeting, previous meeting, and I was mentioned an idea that French committees of solidarity mentioned to me is that they think that we have to convert this trial in a second Burgos trial. I don't know if you remember, the other in the room remember the Burgos trial, which was one of the last of the Franco dictatorship, and created a wave of solidarity across Europe. So when the trial starts in autumn, these French committees of solidarity said it would be a good idea to have demonstrations in the cities and towns in Europe to show solidarity with what's happening now with all these political leaders, that what they only did was to fulfill the democratic mandate they had by organizing this referendum, and that are now facing these threats of.
So we can just stress the point, all 19 are on trial at once. Not doing it individually. 19 people in a dock.
So mass
Trial
trial.
value insufficient.
Sounds good.
They would be charged individually, but they're going to be tried together.
They are charged individually, yeah? One might be charged with 10 years and the other with 15, and you have to prove it, but the trial is the same trial. It's a macro trial with several judges. It's going to be with several judges.
The imprisonment of those people who have been democratically elected is the most disgraceful thing.
And then there are issues on the, the imprisonment, and then you can go into the details. Preventive jail, being 700 kilometers away from their homes.
Exactly.
Yes. And the vulneration of rights is like, well,
not being people who've been attacking other people and need to be kept under control. I mean, there's no question of that.
I'm aware that we have to vacate this room now, so can I just on our behalf thank you
Sorry,
very
I
much
was too
indeed.
long.
No, I mean, that's great thing to say. Thank you very much indeed for
Thanks.
coming here.